Everybody, how are you? Losing my voice a little bit, which I guess is a badge of honor here at Token after a few days, but so hopefully you sound okay. Anyone here play video games? Thanks. There's like 2 or 3 players of video games in the room. I don't believe that for a second, but we'll go with it. So I'm going to tell you about a DePIN for gaming infrastructure. So see if this clicker works. There we go. So I'm hoping to tell you not only about our DePIN, but maybe you'll learn a few things about gaming that you didn't know. So first of all, gaming is the largest media category of our time by far. It's about a $200 billion a year industry, and it has very unique compute requirements. Typically, these nodes are better if they're closer to the edge in terms of the user experience. They're stateful instead of stateless transactions. They have to maintain entire worlds. They've got a lot of complexity to these systems. It's also important when we talk about games today that I'm not talking about only Web3 games. You hear a Token, you probably heard about Web3 games over and over and over again, and many of you are probably still wondering, when's the big Web3 game going to be? Well, we have a few of those building on us, and I'm bullish for them. But the important thing to note is most of that $200 billion industry is still Web2, and it's going to be Web2 for a while. The DePIN network that we're building satisfies the need in that market. So it's a very unique approach to Web3 as it's applied to gaming, which is that you don't have to change your business model to use the DePIN that we're building. You just want to have access to more economic servers. All right, so games are spending a ton of money. Beamable is already a platform that people are using in their games. So I think also, as you've looked at DePIN, there's a lot of projects out there that are purely aspirational. Beamable already has over 100 games that are live on the platform today, generating revenue. We're talking about a couple million users interacting with the games that we're running. Again, mostly Web2 traffic, right? Really unique aspects here in that we're going to be onboarding the proverbial game developers to Web3, not by changing their business model, but by just giving them infrastructure that works better than the alternative. A third aspect of what I'll be talking about is we're building an ecosystem. The thing with games is that they have so many specialized requirements, and all this development on the back end has largely happened within silos. A silo within Amazon, for example, GameSparks, which is a now defunct platform, or a silo inside Microsoft Azure with a technology they call PlayFab. So game developers are forced to choose things that exist within specific siloed cloud providers. Whereas if you open it up with DePIN, we see a huge opportunity not only to get them access to more economic infrastructure, but one that is unified by a set of software that is interoperable across this entire universe. And I'll talk about that as well. We're also getting tons of social traction, attracted a huge number of bots as well, which I'd hope will go away. But we've got a lot of people have gotten interested in this since we launched it just at ETH Denver. Hundreds of thousands of wallets already registered. So I'll tell you a little bit more about gaming. So I mentioned it's a $200 billion a year industry, but the part that is relevant to you as people interested in DePIN is how much of that money goes back out the door in the form of game servers, online systems, all of the spending associated with the backend or cloud architecture. And it's about $35 billion a year. And on average in this industry, it's about 20% of the top line of a given game studio goes back out in the form of various forms of backend infrastructure and labor associated with that. And by the way, the biggest guys out there are sometimes spending the most. Roblox, according to their most recent filings, spent 37% of their top line is going back out in back-end services. So it's a really hard problem to solve, even by the largest companies out there. So game companies are huge users of compute resources all over the world. The thing with game backends is that it's incredibly fragmented. Let's talk about what the structure of a game is for a moment. A game you could think of as basically just a front end and a back end. The front end is the graphical pieces that you interact with when you're playing the game. And today there's more or less two companies that dominate this market. One is called Unity, and the other is called Unreal Engine, which is owned by Epic, which you might know best for their game called Fortnite. There's other engines that are up and coming as well, but those two companies have succeeded by making the software very composable, easy to use, integrating a lot of features in one place, but also having a marketplace of add-ons that are very easy to plug into their system. That does not exist on the back end. At least it hasn't existed until Beamable has rolled out our DePIN. So if you look at the back end, it remains today a very fragmented, complex environment, everything from servers to data storage systems to CRM, DevOps. If you want to do cool new things with generative AI or blockchain integration, that's just even more complexity. All those plugins do not have a common schema for how they're integrated, deployed, and then scaled up for lots of users, because the usage level on a game can be enormous. Games can have tens of millions of users, millions of concurrent users. Okay. My background before coming to this was building commercial games. I built a blockchain game, but I also built, general mainstream games, shipped games to 20 million players, where we had over 1 million players per day playing our games. So when you don't have an infrastructure that can scale up to support that, you might be destroying your entire business virtually overnight because players don't come back when things don't work. So we talked about the cost. It's about 20% that people are spending, but it's that last piece that's actually the most important piece. So saving money is something that any game studio would want to do. But the fact is that when you try to build this stuff yourself, you take on enormous risk. And it's also something that's part and parcel with the choice of any third-party service provider you choose as well. So I want to show you a few of the stats in this market. So first of all, when we talk about this $200 billion industry, that's almost all online games today. Yes, there are still single player games that you can do that don't have cloud connections, but it's basically 95% of the industry are building online games, or have already shipped an online game, or will ship an online game as their next game. So that's one data point. Second data point is most studios would prefer to just buy this technology off the shelf than build it themselves. However, there's a lot of reasons why they might not. Reasons why they would be why they would buy off the shelf is it standardizes it. It's typically lower risk from a purely technical standpoint. It avoids technical debt, which is the thing that kills game studios, because game studios only actually get paid for making things fun. They don't get paid for building backend technology. But if you choose the wrong backend provider, you can really get thrown under the bus. So here in Web3, we often talk about Rugpulls. The biggest rug pull in gaming history was Amazon when they shut down a service called GameSparks. Had 2,000 games on this service. They shut all the games down because they didn't want to continue the service. So when you choose a platform, you expose yourself to enormous risk, and a large centralized provider can actually shut you down. So we saw some of those problems. And frankly, when we got started as a software company, we started hearing the same complaints or worries about us, like what happens if Beamable goes away? And we had always wanted to make the technology decentralized, but as other leaders in the field like Helium and so forth started coming forward, we realized that we had to do two things: open source the platform, but also open up the network itself so that the nodes that operate this technology for backend services and games would have the interoperability, could keep on running even if Beamable didn't exist. So that was our goal. There's a few major benefits that you get with DePIN in gaming. One is the reduction of centralized dependency risk. That is really the biggest thing in games, just because as I mentioned with Amazon was able to basically destroy a couple thousand games who had bet on them, right? So game studios are very, very wary today of placing a bet on anything where they can't take it either in-house or just switch things around to another provider. But it's not easy to do unless the network has actually been designed around interoperability and the ability to just spin up new nodes wherever you want. And that's where the second piece comes in, which is it isn't just decreasing the risk. It's the fact that you operate within an ecosystem which accelerates your development because now people are willing to contribute to an ecosystem. People don't contribute to the Microsoft PlayFab ecosystem or didn't contribute to the Amazon GameSparks platform because there was no reason to. A, you couldn't get paid for it, and B, why would you want to just build within one company's proprietary infrastructure? So our hope is that by creating something that's open both at the software and the infrastructure level, that we're actually going to speed up game development, take more things off the table for game developers so that they can focus on the fun. So that if you need a matchmaking system or a social system or a chat system or all these things that come up in online services, you just pull it off the shelf. And lowering cost, definitely nice to have. Typically, bare metal service providers in the game industry, if you can use them, are going to be, I say 50%, really like 70% less for your CPUs, probably 90% less on bandwidth. I won't spend too much time on this, but this is what Beamable does for a game developer. So if you're a game developer, you just need a lot of these systems, social systems, economic systems, data store, account login, multiplayer, data persistence, all this stuff that happens in the cloud for a game. You need all of that. And this is what Beamable spent the last 5 years creating an SDK and a whole platform around. And it integrates directly with 3D engines that you're already using as a game developer. So Unity and Unreal makes it really, really easy to use. Back to the ecosystem part, though, it's something that we're really proud of, which is we have already formed partnerships with a wide range of companies, both in blockchain. We've got about 10 blockchain integrations. We've got multiple integrations with generative AI companies, analytics companies, payment companies, matchmaking companies. Kind of the list goes on and on and on. But the idea is we're not going to build all the capabilities of this. We're building the architecture, the container architecture that operates on an interoperable compute network that is geared towards the unique requirements of games and game servers. And then we open it up so that all of this other software can run there as well, which continues to add to this DePIN flywheel that's often talked about because it's more software that they can get paid for that continues to add demand to the network because game studios need all of these capabilities. So, I mentioned earlier, Beamable has 100 games already launched on the platform. Beyond that, we've got many more in development. We've got real usage on the platform already, and we have some dashboards that I think are coming up in the next slide. Yep. So if you want to see our live stats, we have not launched the token yet, but you can go and see the live stats on the network. You can see things like how many API calls are going through the platform, how many developers have signed up. See, we had a really nice spike in Q1 after ETH Denver, lots of people coming to the platform that we're excited about, millions of users, billions of API calls. So that's all present there. And it, of course, translates into the revenue for the platform, which we believe that Beamable will be, at least according to DePIN Ninja data, will be in the range of the top 10 DePIN projects by revenue when we launch the protocol. The team behind this, by the way, we all have ample blockchain experience, but we have a combination of building games, shipping games. I've shipped games to 20 million players, things like Star Trek and Game of Thrones, big brands. We've done that as a team. We've worked together and overlapped about 10 years together. And we built enterprise technology and development tools. I started a company in the web development tools space that I took public on NASDAQ. So all of those experiences are going together. This is a super complicated product. You need to understand games. You need to understand development and scaling a cloud architecture to do this. We put a really unique team together that I'm proud of. Tokenomics, you can read about it on our white paper at beamable.network. But the key thing is we haven't launched this yet. We're certainly interested in anybody who wants to come along and help us towards the TGE, which will be later this year. But in summary, we've got real product market fit in this platform, not just for Web3 games, but for Web2 games, which allows us to access a very large market of game developers with this technology. We've got existing games that are revenue generating on the network today. DePIN really is the disruptive opportunity that this market is actually begging for. They need something that's open, interoperable, that doesn't capture them with something that shuts them down if Amazon changes their business model. and we're getting a lot of social traction on it already. So thanks for listening to this. It was
Great.
really exciting to be here at Token.
Great. Thank you, Jon.